spent about 3 hours getting these villagers to the trades and another 5 getting them in there. Yeah, because it took 5 hours. If I sweat, it wouldn't have been 5 hours. Yes, you should. F3. Hello? Hello? Are you still here? No. Trying to see if we have any more secrets messages. He's here. Nope, he's not here.
What's up, Venus? We're winning because we got our new Pimax headset. Tonight's stream is mostly going to be really boring software configuration and stuff, so don't get your hopes up too much, but right now I've just updated the Nvidia drivers.
Starting
the
DRE.
8K is in the house. I'll show it to you in a second. Hold on. It came today. Yesterday it was in Tennessee, and I had correspondence with like
Connected
the
to
FedEx
iRacing telemetry.
customs office specialist or whatever. She needed like me to fill out some paperwork and confirm the value of it because there were like conflicting prices on the invoice and the billing label or whatever. So when I heard that and I sent them the information, I was expecting it was going to take another week or so, because when the 5K Plus came, it spent 10 days in customs in Los Angeles, but I guess they cleared it yesterday and put it on an airplane, so it arrived in San Diego this morning, and then they brought it to my house. So right now I just updated the Nvidia graphics driver to the most recent, and my plan is to sort of do this sequentially and try and be scientific about it, where first updating the Nvidia drivers, then updating PiTool, and each step along the way checking with the 5K, this is the older headset, and just trying to make sure that its performance remains the same or better as we go, and then when we switch to the 8K I'll be able to evaluate and see how it goes. Okay, so the good news is I don't notice any stuttering or micro issues with the new graphics driver on the 5K using the ancient version of PiTool that I've got. I'm on like version 1.44 of the PiTool software. The current version is like 2.63 or something, or
23 seconds to your pit.
So it's been a long time since I've updated my Pimax software, and part of that's just because what I have works, and I've been reluctant to risk I don't know what happened with the 5K and customs and stuff. It seemed like there wasn't any clearance information they needed. It just spent a long time. So down here, PiTool webcam scene. I don't know if she has a macro for that. PiTool webcam. Oh, I'm not even running. Hold on. Wait a moment. Okay, so here it is. Fancy box. Well, I'm a little concerned about the straps. Yes, they've upgraded it and it's supposed to be better, but the hinge stops. It doesn't move the way I think you would expect. So it's hinged here on the edge, and the pivot point down here seems like it stops moving right about there. And to fit on my head, I want it to go back further. I want it to come down more, but it doesn't. And it's got that feel to it like it's one of those sort of bump stops on a piece of plastic that if you push beyond, then it snaps and it goes to the next position. But from the research I've done and looking at other people's reports on the internet, that's not true. And if you do that, you break it. So it's designed to sort of sit with this back part up above on the top of my head, as opposed to like the way the 5 goes and sits back here underneath. So I'll try it the way it is, but I'm not super optimistic. Yeah, so it's weird. The good news is that I have another deluxe audio strap that's on my old Vive, and I've got extra 3D printed adapters and stuff for the Pimax. So if I don't like, or I can't find a way to get the head strap to work comfortably, I can switch back to the deluxe audio strap and have both Pimaxes set up the same way. So we'll see. Okay, so we just updated the
Box now.
GeForce drivers and all as well. So not a big surprise, but I want to test everything as I go through. Okay, so now the bigger risk or concern as far as changing the way my system works is going to be upgrading the PiTool software. Right now, I'm running a really old version. So it's like version 1.144. This is really old. The HMD has a really old version of the firmware. Thanks, Creepiness. I've taken some screenshots and I just want to make sure I've got everything archived. So here is a screenshot from in the headset at centripetal circuit. Shows like the resolution and stuff that it's running at. These are the SteamVR settings that I have that show like the current resolution per eye and stuff, because I'm told at certain PiTool and SteamVR versions and stuff, the resolutions change even for the same percentages and stuff. So I want to try and just make sure once I get everything installed, I'm comparing apples to apples. It's the way my Pimax stuff was. I did, adjust the IPD offset and these vertical offsets quite a bit to find what was comfortable for me. So I want to save those settings and stuff. And this is what I was running as far as the older version 445.87 of the Nvidia control panel. And then that was something else. So I think we're good to go as far as updating PiTool. But I think the appropriate way to do it is to uninstall it first, close out. Ooh, I want to make sure that I've got there's an image replacement trick that you do. Let's see. In the Pimax runtime resources, I think it is. Resource, there we go. So by default, it wants to show this little starry sky when you put the headset on, when it's just booted up with the software. But what I've done is replaced it with this RGB color crosshatch that makes it easier to adjust like the vertical offsets and stuff. So I want to make sure that I keep this, because I think this whole directory and stuff gets blown away when we do the update. I'll keep their old original one just in case for comparison. And then let's see. So here's the PiTool setup that I got today. And this is the older one that I have been running. Just copying these to my network. Save for posterity in case I need to roll back or anything. Okay. Bye-bye, PiTool. And then I think you're supposed to go through and manually delete some other folders from like documents and stuff. Let's see if there's anything obvious. It's weird. Why do I have... Somehow in my SimuCube setup I have a version of PiTool that's old. I must have just fat fingered and copied that accidentally. Seems really peculiar. But I don't see anything in documents that's obviously PiTool. Let's go look in app data. There it is. I'm not really going to delete it, I'm just going to rename it out of the way. Okay, so we've moved the app data stuff out of the way. The program's been uninstalled. It had been in program files. There's still a Pimax folder. Oh, look at that. It kept the default. But it left the one that was left behind. Okay, so we'll just delete the Pimax folder altogether. To keep things consistent, I'll just leave it there as 144. Okay, now we're going to reboot after uninstalling the Pimax stuff. Okay, so there's no more PiTool. This little shortcut should go nowhere. Yep. Okay, so we're going to update, do the new PiTool. It may have us do like a firmware update on the headset. There is a 263 version, or 264, but I have seen people in the forums talking about color issues on the 5K Plus. So, and the only things that were fixed between 263 and 264 look like they're for the eye tracking, which I don't have yet. So I'm sticking with 263, which seems beloved by users. So it's weird, I've got the purple light now, where I think I used to have a blue one. Well, it's more like a rig workshop stream. Goal is to set up Pimax. Okay, it's working now. I see the world and stuff. but it's doing like the silly Pimax home or whatever. Let's see if there's anything for the headset version. That seems really weird. There's no firmware update because I'm running an ancient headset firmware. Yeah, I got the Pimax 8KX today. Pickerel webcam. Pickerel webcam screen. Pickerel webcam scene. Not sure I have a webcam scene command. Let's see. They look very similar. The 5K over here is black, and the 8K is sort of purple-blue. Physically, they look very similar as far as like the layout and the lenses and everything. The headset strap on this ostensibly is nicer, but it's weird the way the hinge works. It doesn't go, even if the Velcro strap is completely loose, it doesn't go any further back than that. It has a hard stop. And for my head, I'm going to want it to go back further. But it doesn't go. So, I don't know. We're going to see what happens. If I need to, I do have another 5 deluxe audio strap that I can switch to. So, we'll see. But right now, my goal is to sort of sequentially go through the software updates. We first did the Nvidia graphics drivers, and now we've updated PiTool. And my intention is to check every step along the way and make sure I haven't messed stuff up for the 5K. But I guess I'm really... So, okay, let's see if this works.
What kind of performance difference is it supposed to be?
Performance difference between the PiTool or between the 5K and the 8K? I think I broke it trying to switch between the colors. It's mostly resolution. The 8KX, see how they advertise it. So they're saying that it's dual native 4K screens. Same 200-degree field of view, which is a little iffy depending how you consider it. Comfort enhancements. Blah, blah, blah. So the resolution, this is the key factor. 3840 by 2160. The 5KX that I've had oh, this is the XR version. This is what I've had. 5K plus. It's interesting, they don't list the technical specs the same way. So the resolution here is 2560 by 1440. So the new one at 3860 by 2160. 3840 by 2160. Higher pixel density. That's for sure. Should be. Hopefully it doesn't kill the computer. Okay, so the new PiTool installed. It recognized the headset. I don't know why I got distracted by the fancy light bar color options. Not responding. I'm going to close the program and reboot the computer. Probably best to have stuff start up fresh. There is like a whole PiTool server service that runs and stuff, so it's probably best to just reboot.
Crewbean is 9034. Send. Now begins the debug stream. Kappa.
Yeah, probably.
Legal 1. Send. Not as much a necessity with modern Windows, but still helpful now and then.
Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm old-fashioned, but when I uninstall something, I usually reboot. When I put something in for fresh, especially if it utilizes services and stuff, I usually reboot.
Legal 1. Send. Sometimes it just works.
Sometimes it does.
Aaron 0012. Send. Yeah, God, you won.
We did, Aaron. Here it is. Look at that. Woo! It's very exciting. Okay, so we've updated the Nvidia GeForce drivers. We've updated the PiTool.
Aaron 0012. Send. Awesome. Legal 1. Send. That might bar part of its head tracking.
Okay, so it's disconnected. Let's see what the diagnose. Does this give us like a reset server option?
6. Send. First time trying it.
Yep, and actually it's going to be a while, I think, before we even plug the new one in. What I'm doing right now is going through the software installation, sticking with the 5K, and trying to make sure that I can sensor detection abnormal. Weird.
ACBK66. Send. A new PiTool is out.
Well, there's been a new PiTool for a few weeks. It's like the 263. 262 is the first one that people got excited about, and then there's 263 and 264 are the newer betas. What I installed was 263, which seems like it had a few fixes over 262, and the differences between 263 and 264 were just for eye tracking. So my intention was to see if I could install everything still using the 5K plus, see whether I suffered performance issues or anything with that, and then switch over to the 8KX and do a comparison. But we've hit our first snag as far as it seems to be unhappy about the headset now. It did work momentarily when we first installed it after updating. But what it's telling me is disconcerting as far as like that it's disconnected. I think I'm going to actually shut the computer down and restart it rather than just doing a reboot. See if that makes any difference. And I'm not concerned or anything yet. I've been putting off updating PiTool for a long time because the version that I had was satisfactory. The performance was good enough. And I wasn't really motivated by anything I saw in the release notes for new features. But to use the new headset, I think I should definitely be running on the most recent version. So I'm going to go turn the computer back on. I'll be right back. I expect there must be a firmware update for the headset, and maybe that's the piece that's missing so far. And maybe I should have done that while I still had the other PiTool that was connecting, but we'll see. Nope. Same issue. So I wonder how I do the firmware update when it's not letting me connect to the headset. So now that it's running, I'm going to disconnect the USB and plug it back in, and I'll see if that makes any difference. I just reset it, and the lights are doing like a weird... Everybody just remain calm. Success. Well, success is definitely better than contact support. Something happened. It said success. It's not showing there now. Okay, now it's telling me that the video is disconnected, but that's not true. But I'm going to reboot one more time. I know it's probably seeming like superstition, but I've done this before. Repairing, like, you mean with the sensors and stuff? I don't know. Shouldn't be. Shouldn't be. And I don't even have like any of the controllers set up, so there's none of that Bluetooth stuff. Okay, the screen just went out, which is actually a really good sign. Typically when it's working, the monitor and the headset do this little dance when the computer starts up. If the light turns green on the headset, I'm going to be really encouraged. It went to purple. And I have a view inside the headset. Okay, so things are looking better. Look at that. Okay, so yeah, the headset firmware is different now. No update available. I know this is the version of PiTool that I want to be running, so that's all good. I do not wish to run PiTool at system startup. Hiding to the taskbar is fine. I do not want to use Pimax VR Home. I don't think I want the screensaver. We're using a lighthouse. I'm not going to mess with that. We're running this headset at 90 Hertz. That's all good. I don't know what the backlight has to do with, like, color brightness and stuff, I thought. I don't know. Let's take a look at my previous values for these settings. The IPD and the offsets. I went through and I took screenshots before I started this process just so I'd have an archive of everything. So this is the way iRacing looked. We can look at like the resolution of that. SteamVR settings, PiTool. So this is what I wanted to see. So I had my IPD at 0.05 or 0.5, and I had the left down at 2.5 and the right down at 2. Motion compensation is none, and all of that is good. Games and stuff, I don't really care. Just want to make sure there's nothing in here that's going to be... So the field of view, I wish to have large. I've left the PiTool quality at 1 in the past. Fixed foveated rendering, we'll just leave that closed, I think is their word for off. I do not wish for parallel projections. I do not wish smart smoothing. Hidden area mask, I've never known whether that actually worked with like iRacing. I do not wish the Vive only compatibility. And I haven't done anything. I think this is the first version of PiTool that I've been running that has like these fancy color calibration stuff, so I'm going to leave those alone. Apply. Apply success. Okay, and the light is back to green, which I think earlier it was purple, and I think that meant that the parallel projection stuff was on. We're going to save as well as applying, just because we like more success. Okay, so from the top, I don't want it to start up, don't want to use SteamVR Home. All of that looks good. Large field of view. Status. Okay, so now that I've got the settings the way I want, guess what? We're going to reboot again. Because in the headset, it's still not showing like the wide field of view. And I know I could probably do that just by resetting it within the thing, but like I said, superstition. But if everything still looks good in PiTool, the next step is going to be run iRacing, or actually we need to take a look at the SteamVR settings and see if the resolution changed. I've heard that that did shift at some point, so even if you're running what you thought was the same PiTool quality and the same Steam resolution percentage, it actually came out to be a different final resolution. Okay, so the headset's back to green. Now it looks like it is running in the right wide field of view. So that's good. Let's take a look and see what PiTool has to say for itself. Whether it remembers the settings that we made.
Just makes me think of the code or story's code just choosing to look of its own accord.
Indeed.
Is that your new 8KX?
Right now we're still working with the old 5K Plus, but the goal is to get the 8K working. But I want to go through it methodically and just make sure that I still have the 5K working as well as possible so I can do valid comparisons between the two. So that's weird. I don't...
CEDK66 said, I can get good performance bump from this update on my 5K Plus.
Good. I'm hoping it still works well with mine. I've been running version 144 forever. So I'm just hoping it doesn't introduce micro stutters or have any problems.
Crichton said, so your 8KX finally arrived?
The 8K is here. Look at that.
Michael 1 said, I am rather curious if your bitrate is enough to make a noticeable difference talking ERC.Twitch.
No, I'm sure the SteamVR view or what we show on the screen will not look any different because that's already I'm running that as a 1080p view of what is coming out of SteamVR, and even if the resolution increases dramatically in the headset, it's still going to scale it and it's going to look the same. I'm totally confident. As long as the aspect ratio and stuff is consistent, that's not going to look any different. Okay. So it's not tracked. I used to have this problem where it wouldn't ever track starting up, and you'd have to like hide the sensor or hide the headset from the sensor to get it to work. There we go. It's tracking now. Let me just take a quick review of the settings and make sure that it didn't forget anything. Those are correct.
Michael 1 said, right there, moment for me. Takes a PC upgrade, not extra hardware for that.
All that's still correct. Large field of view, so it did get that retained. Okay, things look good as far as PiTool.
Rather PC side, not HMD side.
So let's start up SteamVR. Okay. Don't notice anything odd as far as like update or refresh or anything in the SteamVR view, which is good.
Said, I was the same to running 144 for a long time before this update. I run 120 FPS, although you don't stay locked at 120 all the time. I find it better than locked at 90 for some reason.
So it's funny, the little icon is changed in SteamVR. I guess that's supposed to be like a 3D view of the 5K Plus now. Weird. Okay, so the good news is it works in SteamVR. Let's take a quick spin in iRacing and make sure nothing's changed there.
If there's one thing I am full-wide confident in, stable frame rate is better any day over spikes and dips.
Well, your brain does a good job of accommodating it if it's low, but you have a hard time adjusting if it fluctuates. So I think this will be Radicals at Laguna Seca. That's fine. It's something we're familiar with. Well, it's interesting back like in the early days of multiplayer when like they first came out with the version of Quake that did the predictive stuff. They called it Quake Live, I think.
I learned that personally at War with Tanks on a trip potato while my main was out of commission.
And there were interesting studies that showed how when the latency fluctuated, your whole game went off. But even if it was like a really low latency, I mean, a really, high time differential between the client and the server, you're able to compensate for that pretty well. But the fluctuation was the biggest problem. And you guys can't really see it, but I actually have another new screen, like a little physical monitor.
Searching for DRE.
So that now I've got the VR view all the way down on a little bitty 10-inch 1080p display that's the same as what I use to monitor the stream.
Good day, Chris. Partly cloudy above, 78.0 Fahrenheit in air, with 119.0 Fahrenheit around the track.
And we've lost SimuCube, which I'm not too concerned about. It happens when you reboot the computer a whole bunch. But if I turn it off and turn it back on, it should reinitialize. See if we have it now. We do. Look at that.
Slow down.
Okay. Motion testing as far as like spins. Everything looks nice and smooth. That's good. I found that doing that kind of thing with the burnout or the donuts shows micro stutters really prominent. At least it makes it easier for me to see them. So far, so good. Let's take a look at the frame rate is solid 90. It's good. World scale still looks consistent. I'm not noticing anything obviously different as far as how the world looks. Okay. So far I'm pretty happy. I haven't noticed anything obviously wrong or different with the 5K running with the newest PiTool and the newest Nvidia drivers on. I haven't checked to see if there's a SteamVR update, but I'm not really enthusiastic about doing that again. We had to update to 1.13 for this build of iRacing, and that really messed up the SteamVR headset mirror that I used to use. Right now, I'm going to be using this iRacing monitor or window output. But
23 seconds
it's good
to your
news
pit
that
stall.
it seems like
Speeding.
all of this is very fluid. Success.
You've got some damage. Let's get that fixed.
Yeah, I've got some damage. So yeah, Kreidel, we just updated PiTool. I'm running 263. I know there's a newer one, 264, but I saw some people on the forums complaining about color issues with the 5K Plus on that version, and the only difference between 263 and 264 looked like it was for eye tracking, which isn't a consideration for me yet. Well, this is a good enough test for right now. Oh, actually, before we go out, let's take a SteamVR snapshot. Okay, so let's see. This is the one that we just took. That's us here at Laguna Seca. And the previous one was here at Centripetal Circuit, but this is running the old Nvidia drivers and the old PiTool. So obviously they're not pictures of the same thing, but what I wanted to compare was the detail we can see in the properties for what the actual resolution is. So when you use the SteamVR screenshot, that's a actual just bitmap layout of what's being rendered on the panels. So it's the best way to like compare what you're seeing. Details. Okay, so something did change. Yeah, look at this. Before, this is the one from earlier today, it was 8536 by 2784, and now we're quite a bit lower with the same settings. So I bet if we go into SteamVR, it'll show us that 100% resolves to a different resolution. Yeah, look at that. Okay, so I'm glad I took screenshots of stuff before.
Michael 1 said, I am rather curious just how large those file sizes are gonna jump on the 8K.
The 8K is going to be crazy. Okay, so it used to be, this is what was running earlier today, before the PiTool update and stuff, that 100% in SteamVR resolved to 4268 by 2784, and now 100% is lower, 3412. So I kind of wonder if people don't notice that the resolution actually changed quite a bit, and that when they see their performance increase, it's because they're running at a lower resolution, but they don't really notice. So I'm going to experiment with bumping this back up and see if we can get it close to what it was before. So it's interesting. Now to get the vertical 2042, oh, that's 2468. Nope, it's never going to be exactly the same. Because it's sad, you can't just adjust it. Maybe if we go here into the video. I thought you could. I thought you could use the arrow keys to like set a specific percentage. But it doesn't look like it's working that way. So I guess that's as close as it's going to get. Okay, so let's run it again. Or actually, do I need to quit SteamVR and stuff? Let's take a look. Okay, so now it's got the right resolution. I'm sure it's still fine, but I just want to check. So it's also interesting, the 8KX doesn't have a power adapter. Instead, it uses two USB cables. One of them has like the blue indicator that's for USB 3, and the other one can plug into a USB 2. But so you have two USBs and the display port, and those are the three cables that run to it. So you don't actually need the little power adapter anymore. Seems good. Okay, so the frame rate display is still super solid, 90 hertz. I really don't think that minor resolution difference is going to make a huge change for me.
Slow down.
So, still looks good. In-game frame rate display is still totally solid, 90 hertz. It's all good. Yeah, the 5K had a little power adapter you needed to plug into the wall, and then it had a slot on the cable where you plug the power in.
Hello, Patrick.
Okay, so if we take a screenshot of this,
So after further investigation, it seems as though things are
So
where
AKJSAT
chunks
said screw me about the power needs and take it off the PSU.
survive. So,
yep. Which might actually be better. I mean, a modern computer's power supply seems pretty solid. Okay, so this is the new one. And this is the one from earlier today before the updates. Okay, only a few pixels different. Okay, so now we got apples to apples comparison for the 5K Plus.
Legal 1 said, Intel simplifies wiring.
It does, and I've been frustrated because I would like to run mine through conduiting to where my game rig is. My game rig is actually on the other side of the studio from where I sit. And it's a problem because if I put the computer in the room where I would like to have it, where like all my other systems are, it's a 40-foot cable run between there and where my rig is. And I'd had that kind of cable distance solved for USB and HDMI for years, using the Vive and the Oculus. But switching to the Pimax, I couldn't find a satisfactory solution that would run consistently at that distance. It always had either sparkle issues or dropouts or other shortcomings that I wasn't unhappy about. So what I've done is sort of a compromise where I've put the computer in the same room, but it's on the other side of the screen area from where I sit, so I don't have to listen to it. When I was testing, when I originally had the 5K and stuff, I had the computer right here, and it's amazing how it's like I'm in VR with a race car driving and stuff, and I can hear my computer. I don't want to hear the computer. Okay.
Legal 1 said, out of curiosity, would USB have less power loss over distance
But
than
it
those
literally
non-power?
goes for like miles.
I don't think so. I think you'd have signal loss more than power loss. I mean, especially at like the 5 and 12 volt levels of power. The impedance and stuff running through, tens or hundreds of meters of cable is not significant.
I don't think it's true.
Okay, so we're going to shut down. And this will be it, guys. We're going to unplug the 5K, and we're going to plug the 8K in and see what we get. So, oh no, it definitely, and people who don't think that cable impedance is an issue are not being honest with themselves. Cable impedance, as it were. And if you're doing like audio setup, and it's important to have like the wiring that goes to your speakers to be the same distance. And a lot of people sort of joke about that as far as like, oh yeah, like you can really hear the difference between how quickly the electrons get there if the cable's 6 feet shorter or something. That's not the issue at all. The issue is the actual like resistance and impedance in the wiring. So yeah, it's not the electron speed or anything, it's just how much resistance is in the wire, and you want your speakers to be balanced as far as how much resistance there is. And it's totally measurable at those distances. Okay, so I'm going to go and plug stuff in. I'll be right back. Okay, so I've got my cables ready on the computer end. Uncoiling the 8K wire for the first time. It's cute, they give you this little spool. The old cables for the 5K were 5 meters. I wonder if these are the same.
Yeah, here it is, here it is, here it is. Yeah, so there's a tunnel here. I know right as you crosses the border out yeah.
Okay, this is a moment of truth. The red light is on for the first time. The computer's booting up. I believe that one of the USBs, the ones that's blue for the USB, oh look, it's green. And I can see Pimax in the sky. I don't think getting it through the lens with the webcam is going to work, but you guys can share the excitement. Sweet. So that's an excellent sign. Even before we've logged in, the headset knows it's connected, the PiTool or service is running. Whee!
His villagers survived.
Look at that, Pimax 8KX. So the desktop image looks good. I can hardly, I mean, yes, if I focus on the edge of a curve or something, I can see that it is still a digital image and that there is pixel structure. But what I think we used to call the screen door effect, I mean, yes, I can still see that there are pixels and that by definition that means there's a little bit of a gap. but it's pretty fine at this point. Okay, so initial indicators are good. Let's see if settings here are consistent. Okay, so we're not running PiTool startup. I hope all these settings retain.
No, the villagers are loading, so they got killed.
So this is the sad part about it, the 75 hertz at the native resolution. If there's a downside to the 8KX, it's that it's running at 75 instead of 90. They've made noise about how that is addressable in the future and that we might have 90 hertz native resolution, but we'll see. When I first got my 5K Plus, I actually voluntarily ran it at 75 hertz so that I could get the wide field of view and everything at the time before I got like the 2080 Ti and stuff, but we'll see. So I want to set these again. I've forgotten. I mean, they're simple values, but I don't remember what they are. 0.5, -2, 0.5, and 2. Okay. And this might be different depending on how it fits on my face with like the new straps and stuff. So I guess I'll start with these values, but then do an actual calibration later. So we want the large field of view, 1 render quality. Okay, so everything else looks consistent. Apply success. Save success. There's a... Let me show you, actually. For the IPD, my eyes are super narrow together. So even cranking the physical adjustment all the way down, I still have to use a little bit of the software offset. There's a test pattern that we'll replace later. Hold on. So what you do is you replace the default, so instead of seeing the Pimax logo on the starry sky, you see this crosshair RGB cross pattern. And what you do is, for the vertical offset, you only open your dominant eye, so in my case my right eye, and you find the place where physically on your head you get the best optical focus, and then you adjust the vertical offset so that the green bar in the middle is as flat as possible with as little bow on the edges, and that's centered in your view. And then you set the the left eye to the same value, and then you open both eyes and adjust the left until it feels comfortable. And there's a point usually above or below that, depending on your physiology, I think, it's the most stable and the most comfortable in your optical perception. But we'll see. I think it is highly dependent on where on your face the headset goes. But the value to that is that it's actually calibrating it so the center of the screen is where you're looking, and that's where you get the best optical and the best digital alignment.
I did a little bit of seed hunting.
Okay, so let's take a look in SteamVR and see what it thinks the resolution is now. Tracking works.
Yeah, this is one that I like. And there is a mushroom biome.
Wow, look at that. 62, 68. What was it before? Let's see. Okay. So we were running 4268 by 2784. It's now 6268 by 4197. Or 4172.
I personally
I hope the computer can do it.
and I really like this one. I think this one will be good for wars if we do want to do a war. Because how obvious it is that things are different. Like we could build a base in the mountains and
As advertised.
build a base in the forest, have happy hours, that kind of stuff. And it's also nice to have
So I'm not going to be disappointed if it doesn't run at good frame rate.
because like
That's at 150% no.
Well, that's 150% because that's calibrated to where 100% used to be and the way I had been running the 5KX. So I understand. And I totally accept I'm going to probably have to adjust that and stuff to find the performance sweet spot with the 8KX. But I wanted to start out at a reasonable, even expectation. If that makes sense.
I just had an idea. Patrick, so I'm gonna make it so we only have
Okay, guys.
It's mostly jungle. It's only bamboo floating island jungle.
ACK66 said,
Oh,
I see.
Patrick, it's really cool. It's really cool.
Craggle said, good luck.
Godspeed, Roberts Mania.
Yeah, Patrick, it's really cool. There's bamboo everywhere, and sorry, my FOV is terrible because God pots. Yeah. Ooh, there are pandas. Oh, it's another god pot I made. Pandas now, something now. But, yeah.
Wow. It's different.
That GPU spiked.
I think it would be kind of cool if it was just a jungle, like an endless jungle. Because this is an endless jungle. There is nothing but jungle in this. Yes.
Loading DRE.
Yeah, look at the poor GPU.
Still a jungle.
Wrinkle 1 said, kinda scared what temps look like on it.
Okay.
It's fine.
Okay. Because this is a really cool app, to be honest. Something like this, I think will be really nice. I can check out the nether in this one.
The DRE started.
Yeah, we gotta go.
Yeah, it's... The colors are different, and I think I am going to
Hit
spend some
limiter
time
turned on.
working on that. So the in-game says we're running about 64 frames per second right now.
This is on
And it does definitely look really choppy and chunky, but the resolution is amazing.
endless. Yeah.
Wow.
You need to go deeper?
ACK66 said,
And
time
step
remember
in
it's
the
this
back.
long.
Okay. If frame rate was not an issue, this would be really, really good. But frame rate is an issue, so let's see about dialing it down a little bit. Wow, like the clarity on the dashboard is shocking. Okay, this is a good upgrade, guys. I wasn't really sure there was going to be as much of like a visual, oh my god moment, but compared to the 5KX or the 5K Plus. Definitely, I mean, like I said, yes, it's a digital image, and I can see pixel structure and stuff and things, and there is, you know, a texture to it that you could call screen door effect. But it is so super fine. And I think there's also something where your eyes are seeing the pattern differently. So when you're fused and converged on different parts of the LCDs, I think the texture to it sort of fundamentally changes. But yeah, just looking at the trees and stuff, it's not like they're like, oh my god, photorealistic trees, but it's like I don't really see the pixel structure. It's good. Yeah, this is going to be good. But it is obvious that the cable is shorter. The way that it... Similar. Okay, so let's try running it just at what Steam recommends for my system. Or actually here, before we exit out, let's do a screenshot and see what the difference really is from that perspective. Okay, so the screenshot we just took is, wow, look at that. It's 85 megabytes, whereas the previous one was 35 megabytes. That's bigger. So this is like zoomed all the way into the 1:1. Resolution of what's being shown on the actual headset. Look at that. You can almost read the gauge. I mean, look at that. That's in the view. That's this big. Okay. Let's see what the details have to say about the actual resolution. I just like to make sure, because sometimes it used to be that if you adjusted this iRacing scale percentage and the PiTool resolution and the SteamVR super sampling, you could get into weird space where it didn't really show what you'd expect. So I like to look and actually just make sure that the resolutions that are showing up on the panels are what we expect. Yep. So this is what we saw or expected from SteamVR, right? Let's take a look. Yep. And this is just the one eye, and the screenshot is both eyes. So that's why the horizontal is double in the screenshot. So the little tick mark is what what SteamVR thinks my computer can handle. So let's just run it down there. It's low. How does that compare to what the the 5K was running at? Let me see. Okay, so this is actually quite a bit lower than the 5K was running in our previous configuration, but we'll just see what the frame rate and stuff is like.
Oh my god, Patrick, you're not pressing any buttons and you're still like moving and stuff, and it's weird and I don't like it. And you're going at like 20 FPS. Patrick.
Link 1 said, so should still be less screen
No,
work
it's
without
super
pressing.
obvious anyway.
Yeah, I mean, the
It's
optics and the panel should still look the same, but what's being rendered to it is a much lower resolution, so I guess you could see more artifacts and stuff, but let's see. Just make sure that it kept the setting. Yep.
Yeah, I'm screaming Skyblock. I know. It's like 20 FPS. 0 CPS. 1 CPS. Patrick, the highest CPS I've seen you at is like 41. Wow, no, it doesn't. Yeah, but Patrick, you're also macroing. You're like, it's because it's showing that you're gonna break minutes. You're gonna break after 0 life. You're gonna break after 0 life.
Limiter.
Okay, so it now says we're making the expected 75 frames per second. And it's definitely much lower resolution as far as what's being rendered. The texture quality of the image is still very good, but it's clear that the fine detail isn't there as much.
Sorry, I can't read.
Well, let's just see how it feels for 75 hertz at the moment. And I think just listening to the audio and stuff, I'm definitely going to be switching to the deluxe audio strap. I have an extra one on our old original Vive, so I have like an extra set of the 3D printed adapters for the Pimax to snap into the deluxe audio strap. This has little speakers in it, but they're kind of like the they're more like the Rift S than the Index as far as being like built into the head strap, and they don't sound very good, or at least just at this first listen. So this is good. You know, I had a friend who got one of the original HB reverbs, and he brought that over and we tested it and stuff, but for me the shortcomings were that it didn't have a physical IPD adjustment, and I really didn't like the limited field of view. But this is consistent with that, I think, as far as like the actual pixel density, but it's over the entire field of view. So no, this is good. I'm really encouraged as far as just and so far I haven't seen any performance issues that I would say are inconsistencies as far as micro stutters or shutter or glitching, which I was a little bit, to be honest, I was worried about upgrading the PiTool just to face the possibility of introducing those kind of performance issues, but so far this is good. Okay, so we were running like 158% in SteamVR, and now the recommended version was like 50 something. So let's switch the SteamVR scale to 100% and see how that looks, and if we're still making frame rate at that.
"22 seconds to our stall.
But actually, let me do the
Hit now.
burnout tests and stuff.
Slow.
They say you cut the cord. You'll have to slow down and give up the time gain.
Yeah, that's still nice and silky smooth. Even at 75 hertz, it doesn't bother me. Okay, that's good. Yeah, I can definitely tell a difference between 75 and 90. I was hoping that I wouldn't, but I can definitely tell. I think, like I started to say, when I originally got my 5K Plus, I was running it at 75 hertz because at that time, with the graphics card I had and the way things were running, just as far as PiTool performance and stuff like that, 90 hertz was not attainable with any of the graphic options I wanted. Yeah, I'm sure it'll be a little bit of an adjustment. Okay, so let's set this up to 100. Is not as crazy as the 158 or whatever we were running before. Well, it was totally floored at the first one we were running. So one approach would be to increase it until we are sort of saturating the GPU, but we'll see. Yep, probably. Although at that level, I think the complexity of the track and stuff is less of a... I mean, the GPU is more about what's being rendered, the shaders, the resolution. Track differences and stuff, I think, have a lot more to do with the CPU loading. Well, we'll see. Yeah, so we're only seeing 6 feet ahead of the car. Okay, so the in-game frame rate says we're still totally making frame rate. Just put the task manager back up. But yeah, I would say the biggest disappointment so far is the audio coming from this head strap is really not good. And I can feel that my eyes are not quite as comfortable. So I think definitely going through the configuration process with the vertical offset and stuff is going to be a must-do. I'm not surprised that the same values I found on the 5K don't translate directly. And I think even just with the way this strap is and stuff, where it's fitting on my head is different. But you know, I would say like the edge-to-edge optical quality is much better. I'm not seeing as much just like what I would say is lens distortion around the edges.
How's it going?
So far, so good, sweetie.
Awesome.
My wife, everybody. Okay, so you want to evict ConCon and I'll wind stuff down here.
If you guys don't love your mom, you are so losers. I pity you fools who don't love your mom. So it's okay, come on. It's on your Minecraft. You say, I love you, mommy. Kitties are in Ian's room, but you can let them out in the hallway if you want to have them coming over. Okay? Mm-hmm. In a pack of mini mango mochi, there are...
And running at this, I'm not, you know, yes, I do perceive the difference between this and 90 hertz as far as the 75 frame rate, but it's not bad.
There's 15, so let's see. Tomorrow, the power will be out starting around 8 a.m. So if you have any devices you want to charge up, you should plug them in tonight.
Yeah, I think it's going to take some experimentation to find like the right resolution and stuff, but so far, as far as an initial attempt, very encouraging. The sweet spot, I'd say, is even less prominent than the 5K as far as it's not like it's actually clearer in the middle. It seems like the edge-to-edge focus is much better. Okay, well, I think I'm going to sign off for now. This has been a really good introductory setup. We've got all new versions of the graphics drivers, PiTool, SteamVR. Everything's running in iRacing. Haven't seen anything that's like a showstopper issue. So, actually, way better than I was expecting as far as like the potential for drama and having to uninstall, reinstall, configure, fix, whatever. There was a little bit of a hiccup with PiTool as far as getting the right firmware and stuff, but I think once we got past that, and that was with the 5K X. The 8K just worked out of the box, so all is well. Okay, but I gotta go for now, but I think I'll be back on certainly tomorrow. Yep. Alright, well, thanks for watching, guys. Take it easy. Drive safe. I'll see you later. PitGirl, end stream.
Ending stream.